And I welcome today Chris Williams. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Debra. I love your video. You're a star.
Well, we're all stars, and I want to hear about your stardom. Like at Xerox, you busted through barriers, Chris. You heard what you talked with me about, two kinds of no. Explain that.
Two kinds of no, absolutely. There's no, not now, and no, never. And the more salespeople learn about no, not now, and no, never, I love a no, right? Because at least I know to get them on or off my list. So no, not now, and no, never.
That is so impressive. And I think maybe just a little post-it note for some of us around our screens and our phones, because we tended to, in the past, think no was, all right, forget that. Now, you've come by your sales acumen quite honestly, because at age 9 and age 10 and age 11, your Girl Scout cookie sales were tops in your entire school, yet you, Chris, never sold one cookie. Explain.
That's amazing, right? How can you be number one and never sell one cookie? I'm sure many of us have been Girl Scout cookie salespeople before. But when I was 9 years old, I figured out that I needed an entourage or an army in order to be the number one Girl Scout sales. So I went out to my army, my grandma, aunties, neighbors, etc. But this is the interesting part. When a copywriter said, Chris, how did you first start selling? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. And he goes, well, you go figure it out and then come back to me and tell me. So I called up my mom and she goes, oh my gosh, you'd come home at 9 years old, you'd jump on the phone and you would call all of your folks and say, you know, what can I do for you, Grammy? Well, how can I support you? How can I help you? So I was delegating at a very young age, and I've used that skill over and over and over again. And it's just fascinating to me.
It's fascinating to me too. Another story which I found really intriguing, because it's from whence we come, right? That we have some of this in our DNA and we foster some of it. And how about your family plumbing business? Talk to us about that as a young teenager, when your dad basically handed you the phone book. Now, remind yourself, many of us here remember the phone book and those rotary phones, right? Instructing you to call everyone, offering them that your business, your dad's business, your family's business would clean their furnace. And then the person that cleaned the furnace put the sticker on the furnace. And what happens when a person's furnace breaks down? They go to the furnace and voila, there's a sticker. Well, first of all, this was completely brilliant. But was this child labor, Chris? And talk to us about how you progressed through dialing through the phone book.
Well, first of all, I was 13, so I had major attitude. And I wanted to be working on the plumbing trucks with my brothers. And my dad said, of course, I'm a girl and you don't get to do that, and you get to work in the office. So he literally handed me a phone book, and it was in a little sleepy community in California. So the phone book was only about that thick. And he gave me the phone book and he goes, okay, call everybody in the phone book, sell them a $25 furnace cleaning, and you'll be successful. And he goes, do you want me to help you with the script? And I'm like, 13. No, Dad, I can do it. I'll be fine. I sat there for a week dialing for dollars, never sold anything, barely talked to anybody. My dad comes in and he sits in the corner. And I so remember this. He sits in the corner going through his mail, like he's pretending he's not really there.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, Dad, can you help me? He helped me write a script. And that's what I learned about scripts, right? And many people think, oh, don't use a script. And I've coined it to be pre-call planning instead of scripting. Because when I pre-call plan, and obviously we're never going to go into any major discussion, like today, I wrote down some notes so I would stay on track. So anyway, a couple weeks later, we'd sold all the time slots for the $25. So he moved me to another office and then moved me to another office. And we were quite successful that summer. I don't think I charged him enough, though, now knowing what I know.
Well, maybe you recoup that with compounding, Chris.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow. And then you progress through the catapulting from Xerox. I mean, 48 new products. Heavens to Murgatroyd, you were creative. You just have creativity. That's part of your DNA, I think. And now you, as an entrepreneur, have that kind of experience in the corporate world. You have the family business experience, and you have your own ingenuity, and you've built quite the business in Wide Awake businesses. I read your book, Rise Up Leader. Wow, that is a compendium. I recommend it highly. You talk in there about many of us entrepreneurs, included, shiny red truck, have a great idea and just drop right into implementing it, right? Production, right? And then it kind of takes a hold and it becomes successful, and we kind of run faster, right? Rather than, and at the expense of, right, our energy and maybe our life, rather than planning. Talk with us about how you help entrepreneurs get that plan in focus.
Well, first of all, I have to give my business partner credit. She is our illustrious writer. She's brilliant at writing. So Martha Hanlon did a great job on Rise Up Leader. And, over the edits, I don't know if anybody's written a book before, and we have to have a deadline, right? So when we have a deadline, the book gets finished. So we launched the book on International Women's Day in March of this year. And we put a comma, Rise Up, comma, Leader. And the reason we did that is because it's time, women, for us to stand up and be heard. There are so many things. I mean, so many things. I don't want to get into a political discussion, but there's so many things we can do to impact our neighborhoods, our families, our cities, our counties, our government, all that kind of good stuff. So it's really about a declaration of Rise Up, comma, Leader. So the way we work with business owners, Wide Awake Business has been around for 17 years. And one of the things that we, I don't know, kind of applaud ourselves on is that our customers are our product. So we measure everything. We worked with 6,100 clients, help them to increase their revenue by $731 million.
Wait a minute. Did everybody hear that? 731 million of new business, and in that doing, help them retain their existing business. Yeah.
Right. And I think that what I love about that is, we were taught that by one of our mentors, is if I'm not measuring the good that I bring to my clients, then what am I doing? So we created this program called Success by Design. And inside of Success by Design, we bring about these critical success factors. And if you're from corporate America, there might be something about like KPIs, but KPIs are so big, broad, and corporate. So we created critical success factors. And basically, you guys can do it right now for free, doesn't cost anything. Critical success factors are what are the 4 or 5 things you must do in order to hit your revenue, do whatever you're trying to do by the end of the year. And those critical success factors stay with you all year so that you, as a business owner, don't get caught up in those bright, shiny objects. And so when a bright, shiny object comes across your desk, you look at it, you say, does it match the critical success factor? If it doesn't, you either put it in the garbage, put it in a file folder for another day. We doubled our revenue one year when we discovered critical success factors and created them. Our business itself doubled its revenue because Martha and I, like all business owners, man, we can get distracted after critical success factors. So we talk about it a lot in our book, and it's one of the easiest, fastest things you as a business owner can do to increase your revenue is get super clear on what are the 4 or 5 things that must happen. And then you put a little action item or action plan to each one of those items. Works super well.
I think that is profound in its simplicity, right? So like if we go to the movie theater and it's in 3D, now these aren't 3D glasses, but we're granted these 3D glasses, right, when we go in so that we can experience the fullness of everything. And yet we want to really, and we love that as entrepreneurs, options, 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 right? And yet we really want to have a lens through which we filter these new shiny red trucks, these new ideas, because some of them obviously have merit. And yet there's a discipline that you outline in the book, Chris, that keeps us on the path toward the target and really accentuates our and accelerates our progress towards achieving our why. Now, you also wrote Customers Are the Answer to Everything. I read that book. Amazing. You are tenacious. And you also have overcome some personal challenges, having beat cancer. I would love for you just to talk with us about how in all of the multiplicity of experiences in your life, and with all the skill sets you possess and are imagining and creating, how best have you busted through barriers, and how can you give tips to our listeners as to how they might be able to employ that same kind of tenacity in their lives?
Well, I want to sum it up to 4 words: advocate and don't give up. So through the cancer journey, and that's an interesting one, and I haven't spoken much of it. So it was back in 2020 during COVID, crazy time. Yeah. And what most important, I don't know, interesting part about it is that I walked away from the hysterectomy, and the surgeon said, "Don't worry, I got it all. You're good." So I'm thinking, no problem. I go back in 3 or 4 weeks later for the post-op surgery consultation. He goes, "I lied, and you're not okay, and you have stage 3 cancer." I'm like, what? You don't get to do that, doctor. You don't get to say you don't have it, then you do have it. And it was like kind of a crazy moment. So I went through chemo because I didn't know what else to do. And I had all the allopathic doctors telling me, do this, do that. That experience of going, I'm a very positive person. And I would go into the oncology department or the radiology department and sit there and wait for my turn. And man, people were dying. You could just see them dying. And so one day I woke up and I go, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to die. And that's not going to be my story. And so I called up, I might have been Nancy Matthews actually, but Nancy Matthews and a couple other folks. And they said, "Chris, you got to find yourself an advocate. You got to find somebody who knows more than you know about cancer." So I called around. I know a ton of nurses. I called around to one of my nursing buddies. It still gives me shivers to think about it. She was an oncology nurse for UC Davis, one of the biggest hospitals, yes, teaching hospitals in California. Yes. And she was an oncology nurse for 20 years. And she goes, "Do this, do this, do this." And I said, "But how do they know if I'm cancer free or not?" She goes, "Well, go get a PET scan." So I called up, advocated for myself. It was really tough to say, I'm not doing any more chemo until we do a PET scan. I did a PET scan. I was cancer free. I decided to use some third party or alternative medicine. There's this, I'm going to say this because it sounds so funny. I found this therapy called mistletoe therapy, and people all laugh. They go, "Chris, of course, you of all people find mistletoe therapy." And here's the interesting part. Johns Hopkins University did 3 trials on it. All 3 trials were positive. So to me, even though it was mistletoe therapy created by Rudolf Steiner of Waldorf schools way back in the 40s, although it was that old, it is being tested and proven to work. So I did it. And I went in for my next PET scan because my agreement to myself was every 6 months I'd get a PET scan. I went in, and the gal who was, so I did 2 things, PET scan and ultrasound. And the gal who was doing the ultrasound said, "This is really weird, but your benign tumor has actually shrunk." Oh my God. And I don't know how that could be. And maybe I'm mistaken. And so they kept reading it and reading it. 2 years later, cancer free. I will be cancer free. And I have to tell you about 2 books. And just because somebody on the chat said it was perfect timing, there's 2 books you have to read. One book is called The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. It's by a woman named Natasha Winters, with the foreword by Dr. Kelly Turner. So it's a metabolic approach to cancer. I tried to give these 2 books to my oncologist. She would not even take them. And then the second book, this book changed my life. I read it 3 times. It's called Radical Remission. Dr. Kelly Turner is brilliant. And she interviewed 1,000 people who had cancer, went through cancer treatment. And she came up with these 9 factors of every single person had these 9 factors. Here's the interesting part, and then I'll change subjects. So the 9 factors are diet, exercise, supplements. The other 6 items are all psychological. Right? All psychological. And what was interesting is I can do diet, I can do supplements, and I can change my, and I can do exercise. I can do all that. The other 6 were much harder, and we can do that too, because guess who's in control of that? Me. Right? So I did a lot of trauma healing. I did a lot of, you name it, I did it. And I swear this book saved my life. And if you haven't read it, or you know somebody who should read it, and I say should because it's kind of a showstopper. And she did 1,000 people. So 1,000 people can't be completely wrong, right? So that's my 5-minute dissertation on not having cancer.
I celebrate you.
Thank you.
This is a We Can Do It woman, in the case that anybody took a little break, get the replay. Chris, you have just given so many of our audience, live and recorded, such hope. And I commend you for that.
Thank you.
It's in the stories of each of us, and in the victories, in the challenges, in the troughs, and somebody is above that trough and say, I see you, you will not be there long. You have a team and I'm on it. Whether it's a book, it's an impetus, it's an alternative medicine approach. And I commend you for having the presence of mind to not close down, which some reactions take us to, some stress takes us to.
Yeah, it was scary.
Pulling up. Yeah, very scary.
Well,
Wow.
And that's why I love to use the words advocate and don't give up. That's why I love entrepreneurs so much, right? Because who are we? We advocate for ourselves day in and day out, our teams, our products, our services, our customers, whatever all that is. And we don't give up. We have that don't give up gene.
Well, I certainly applaud that in you, and applaud you bringing that up today. It's enriched my life, and I'm sure I'm speaking for a whole lot of our listeners. Talk to us about Lead Her Up Community. What are you doing there?
Oh, that's just so fun. So Lead Her Up Community is, so 4 years ago, I had a business partner, Martha Hanlon, and we were business partners for 14 years. And then one day she woke up and said, I really need to go sailing and do all these other fun things. I'm not allowed to say retiring because she doesn't want to retire. You know what retirement means, right? Retirement means put the cow out to pasture to die.
Exactly.
Right? We're not dead. So anyway, so we came up with this idea to do some leadership consulting, coaching events for women. We interviewed 40 women 4 years ago, and the 40 women basically told us this. They said, I'm tired of being the smartest person in the room when I go to conferences. I'm tired of going to conferences and getting a ton of information and then walking out of the conference, jumping back into work and having no time to implement. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of most of the leadership consultants are men. I'm tired of listening, doing that. And I'm at the top of my organization. I do $250,000 or more, and I don't have time for friends or family. I said, okay, let's do something about that. So in 2020, we put together, or no, not 2020, 2019, we put together our first Leader Up conference. We always do it at boutique hotels. And it's always, man, these ladies love to travel. They love to play. They love to, I don't know, do whatever they do. And now they're starting, you'll appreciate this, they're starting to invest together. They're starting to do deals together. All sorts of different things, and plan for succession. So anyway, we put this event together. It's a 3-day event. Our next one is coming up in October. It's by invitation only because we've made a commitment to the women. One is we don't have all of one industry. That's one reason.
That's right.
Second reason is they really want, it's a like-minded community. And we have all sorts of different ways. So if somebody comes in and let's say they just started their business and they're not really quite at the level they need to be, they can come into the community, they can come into our monthly events. But we have 50 women who are diehards. They come back year in and year out. And I just love it every day. Okay, so the content that we create, we come up with the content, with the idea of what it's about.
Okay.
However, they co-create it, and it's all experiential learning. We don't do any PowerPoint. I mean, we do PowerPoints, but more to keep us on track. And it's all about role playing and learning. Lead yourself, lead your team, lead your legacy / brand. And we've been having a lot of fun.
Oh, amazing. Chris, you're offering our attendees an invitation to put their name in for a drawing for a free ticket for those that qualify. That ticket's worth $560, women. So perk up, listen up, give us a quick who is for and how, and the link is in the chat. And then we're opening up for Q&A. So everybody get your questions in the chat, I guess, because I can't see you raise your hand. And let's pepper Chris with some questions. Chris, what's the drawing for? So
we have a 2-day virtual summit that we're doing in August on the 19th and 20th. Tickets are $559, like you said. And we will be talking about how to recession-proof your business. And the reason we came up with this topic is because Martha and I went through 3 quasi recessions, 1 real recession and 2 quasi recessions, including COVID, which I kind of put in the recession bucket. And when we did that, we learned so much about pivoting, right? So we're going to talk about recession proofing your business. We want to give away 1 ticket. So what we asked is go ahead and register. We'll select a ticket out of there and select a winner. And Deb, I so appreciate you putting all these women together, because the more women who hear about how to recession proof your business, the better equipped we will be to take care of our families, our businesses, and our teams. Absolutely. Who has a question for Chris? Can you pop it in the chat, please? This is a really valuable resource right in front of us. Who has a question?
And we're also going to unmute people. So if you would like to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or and then just unmute yourself. I'm getting that all in process. So if you've got a question, let's go ahead. Stacy Clark is up.
Hi there. I'm glad to be here. This has been awesome so far. Chris, you are absolutely amazing. And your story of resilience and how you came through that not having a cancer situation is amazing. And, you know, I think more people need to hear stories like this, because people don't realize, I love those 9 factors. People don't realize that everything that has anything to do with any of the outcomes we have, but especially when it comes to our health, are about the things that we do and we choose to do and we allow to be done to us. So it was just amazing. So many things I would love to unpack, but I mean, just making choices and decisions on your own and deciding, you know, and I love how you said in the beginning, well, I did chemotherapy because I didn't know what else to do at that moment. But then as time went on, you got information, you made decisions, you listened to yourself, and you made the decisions about what was right for you. And I guess I'm just highlighting all the wonderful things you said. I don't really have a question, but I just want to commend you for what you shared, for what you did. And I wanted to just highlight it so others can see how many wonderful gems you dropped in that information you shared. So thank you for being with us, Chris. And I am looking forward to getting your books, especially the last one. Is it Rise Up, Leader?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. Rise Up, Leader. And thank you so much, Stacey, for that.
Absolutely. Glad to have met you here today. And I'm looking forward to the book and getting to know more about you and your awesome story.
Okay, thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous. Next up is Barbara Dixon.
Oh, I didn't know I was going to talk, but actually,
there you go.
but I'm so happy to hear the things that you told us about your advocacy, your looking at just the way you had to instinctively or intuitively know where to be, who to be around, whom to trust, how to find that person. And I have just a foot problem, which isn't severe, but I definitely need work on it. So I will be using all of those things as soon as I can find them out. So thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Who else might be in corporate or was in corporate and can commiserate or ask Chris how she catapulted successfully and used all that stuff in order to just embellish what she brings to the entrepreneur table already.
So I have a question for the audience. Just by a show of hands, how many of you plan to use critical success factors between now and the end of the year? Because you don't need me, you can do it on your own. There you go. Critical success factors. I think that's one of the little gems of today. They're so easy to use and it gets us away from those bright, shiny objects. And just imagine what is possible when I'm not getting distracted by those bright, shiny objects.
It's that celebrating a few wins first, Chris, right? Instead of just being so spread out and our focus being so diverse and splintered.
Well, and the question to ask yourself is, what must happen in this next 2 quarters in order for me to realize the dream or the goal that I'd like to have? And when you get to what must happen, it's fascinating. There's only 3 or 4 things.
All right, beautiful. We've got lots of people in queue now. Ivies or Evies?
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Debra. Thank you, Chris. This has been amazing and so inspiring. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
And I like that you said that we have the don't give up gene, because I'm sure that you encounter so many instances. So I just occurred to me 2 questions. Number 1, what has been your biggest challenge and breakthrough that you have to come to get where you are at right now? And what would you do if you were starting in 0?
Well, my biggest challenges was raising 5 kids and having 2 businesses. That was my biggest challenge ever, especially when 3 of them were special needs and 4 of them were adopted. That was my biggest challenge. So now they're all grown up and they still come back. And so that's a challenge. And then what was the other question?
If you had to start from 0, what would you do?
I had to start from 0. I would start with critical success factors and not have to learn it halfway through, because I want to share with you that critical success factors, we changed only one thing. We added critical success factors and doubled our business. So I would say start with critical success factors. What must happen in order for you to make your goals?
Excellent. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So shout them out.
Yep, let's go Barbara Dixon. Oh, she was here. Where's Barbara? All right. How about
Oh, I'm here.
there you go. There you go. And then we've got a couple more.
Okay, I'll just be quick because I didn't know I was going to be up here again, but I'm desperately trying to start a new business myself, and totally inexperienced in it. And I love those critical success factors. I can see that applying to me in any part of my life. And so I'm just really thankful that, to both of you, that you're on here today and I get to see this. So thank you.
So Barbara Dixon, I'll give you one piece of advice, and I'm sure Nancy and Deborah would say the same thing. Understand who your ideal customer is first. It's the sacrifice, right? So you're going to sacrifice some people because you can't be all to everybody, and go interview a handful of those ideal customers and have them share with you what they want you to create, instead of creating and then throwing it out there and hoping it works.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Let's go next to Muggs.
Good morning. Well, what you just said was absolutely perfect. What you just answered for the other one. I am also in transition. I've been a nurse for over 23 years. And so even though it's not really a corporate job, although I have worked for corporations, I am transitioning now as an entrepreneur with my own life coaching business. So I'm in my later years, but I'm ready to, do this. I've already created my LLC, and I've done some workshops, and I have a business plan and that kind of thing. So I love, this information that you're sharing today. For me, it's just putting myself out there in the marketing. And that's where, I get a little bit nervous about, putting myself out there. I'd like to start speaking from other people's stages. And that's, what my future I'm looking at, because I will retire in November of this year. So I'm trying to make a plan to be prepared to do that by the time I'm out of my full-time position.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah.
So what was your question?
Well, I just, the best way, I guess, to get myself out there, I've been doing a workshop every month via Zoom, but I'm only using like Facebook and Instagram to put myself out there. And I feel like it's really limiting myself. So that's why my goal is to try and speak for clubs or businesses and that kind of thing. So
here's what I would recommend. Here's what I would recommend. I would call everybody that you know, and I don't mean email them, I mean call them. Have a conversation with them, ask them who they know, who you must know, and get introductions that way. It's the fastest path to cash, guaranteed.
Love it. Thanks, Chris.
You're
Beautiful.
welcome.
Wow. Well, if this hasn't just jazzed everybody, then I don't know, maybe you need some other medical attention, because this has been completely riveting to me. And I can't thank you enough, Chris, for joining us. Again, Chris has given us the opportunity to put our names in to be drawn to attend the Wide Awake Business Leader Up 2-day virtual workshop, August 19th and 20th of this year. That link is in the chat, and the information on Chris and how to contact her is, I perhaps think, also in the chat, but it's been in a lot of the promotional material. Chris, thank you so very much, and blessings on you, sister.
Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure. I love working with you and Nancy always. And I will catch you some other day.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Excellent.